Welcome back. Good Monday morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maria Bartiromo. Happy Monday. It is Monday, October 7th. Your top stories right now, 7:32 a.m. on the East Coast. We've got concerns about U.S.-China trade talks weighing on markets this morning. Futures indicating a decline of about 60 points on the Dow Industrials right now. S&P is down 6 and the Nasdaq lower by 17. The China talks resume this Thursday. Meanwhile, last week it was about the economy. Stocks rallied Friday following the jobs report. The Nasdaq was higher for the week, but Friday's gains were not enough to bring the Dow and the S&P 500 out of negative territory after a volatile week. Dow and the S&P down on the week. Checking global markets this morning, European indices this morning are mostly higher, although we did have more signs this morning of a slowdown in Europe. German factory orders were out, declining 0.6% in August, more than expected. Orders from inside Germany down 2.6%. Germany's DAX index right now is up 37 points. The CAC 40 up 13, and the FT in London is up 17. In Asia overnight, markets in China and Hong Kong are closed for the holidays. As you can see, the others fractionally moving. Living in luxury, people getting hotel-like perks at home, how it's shaping the real estate market coming up. And kids getting a raise. Look at the average amount of allowance that kids are getting every week. The number may shock you. All those stories coming up. First, our top story this half an hour, the Houston Rockets now entangled in the Hong Kong protests. One tweet sparking the firestorm. The now deleted tweet by the general manager of the Rockets, Daryl Morey, read this: "Fight for freedom, stand with Hong Kong." Major sponsors and China's Basketball Association responded, saying that they will no longer work with the team. Joining us right now is Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, good to see you.
Good morning.
So now we know that the Rockets have rolled over and succumbed to the Chinese.
If you had asked me 3 or 4 days ago, what do the Houston Rockets have to do with the Hong Kong riots, I would have said nothing. But we know that's not the case. So this is not a case of freedom of speech. This is a case of what speech works best to sell your product. You know, the First Amendment restrains the government. There is no First Amendment, obviously, in China, and they are unaccustomed to having anybody publicly criticize them, much less an entity like the NBA, which they are wooing to come over there. There are, I believe, a couple of games scheduled to be played there, even involving the former New Jersey and now Brooklyn Nets, for which I am a strong supporter from when they played in New Jersey. So the question is, when you make a political statement which is protected under American law that affects your product in China, should your bosses force you to retract the statement? The bosses are going to do what's best for the product. And that's what happened here. You may, with all your heart, support what the general manager of the Rockets said, but if it's going to impair the ability to market basketball in China, he's got to think twice before he makes.
Well, that's what's interesting, Judge, too. Is it? Well, it's kind of it's interesting in a couple phases that he said it in the first place.
Yes,
because you had to know
it was unprovoked.
It was unprovoked, Judge, and it was going to be inflammatory. Plus, some interesting things about the Rockets. That was Yao Ming's team that drafted him. That kind of introduced kind of this whole, Chinese players in the NBA. And the fact, too, that we've got, like you said, more and more games and more engagement with the Chinese. Huge market. We talked about this earlier, Jack, about how big the market is to the NBA in China and how they don't want to screw it up this time.
They don't, but they always talk about social justice, right? This reminds me of the NFL kneeling debate. What happened in the NFL kneeling debate, people got offended that they were going against the flag, so everyone came to a head. This is the same thing that needs to happen with this situation, because, at some point, this convenient social justice, when it fits your pocketbook, needs to change. You got to be about principles. And I think that you see that overall in society right now in America, because everything that we're showing the kids is that if something's convenient, then stand up for it. If it's not convenient for you, then what happens to principles? Everything else is thrown out the door.
I agree with what you say, but the Chinese market is not like the American market. If the government doesn't like a message that accompanies the product, they won't allow the product to be sold.
Right.
It's as simple as
that.
So
then maybe the Houston Rockets shouldn't be so interested in going into the Chinese market. I mean, this is all about money.
Yes.
How about human rights?
Yes, you're right. It is all about money.
This isn't just a Houston Rockets issue. This is an NBA issue.
Yes.
This is the NBA and Adam Silver and his buddies who run the league wringing their hands over China rather than worrying about the United States. They're choosing communism over one person who is speaking out in favor of democracy in Hong Kong. That is the decision that they're making. Ooh, you can't make the communist government mad. They've got 1 million people in concentration camps. They spy on their own people through AI and facial recognition. There is no freedom of the press. There is no free internet.
Right.
And they're stealing from America.
Yeah.
And that's what they're worried about. They're worried about China. You can't say anything that makes the communists mad.
Yeah.
But they're not worried about the fans here in the United States. I think Connell McShane yesterday tweeted, he said, it's hilarious that the NBA has fouled up so epically that they've united the people in America against the league.
Yeah, and don't forget what Carrie Lam is trying to do right now, this emergency move that you're not allowed to wear a facial mask. You're not allowed to wear a mask in the protest. Why do you think that is? Because China has their facial recognition cameras everywhere, and they want to see exactly who are at those protests, because you know what? You're going to get it. There will be consequences
and most of
for
those protesters are still wearing the masks. So people get arrested for wearing masks. In the act of the arrest, the mask is destroyed, and nobody can prove in a court who was wearing the mask. They get bailed out, and they go right back out to wear the mask
And by the way, what you just said, that's why I have a problem with Google having an AI lab in Beijing. Google walked away from the Pentagon Project Maven contract, and now they're working with China, and there's no separation of military and commercial use.
Well,
when you have an innovation in China, the first place it goes is to the military. So don't tell me Google's not working with the Chinese
military.
military.
Right, and Google is poking the bear, meaning at some point, when the stuff that's going on in Washington is over, the government can legislate like it's supposed to. They're going to address how American technology falls in the hands of those who would use it to harm us.
Yeah, and that's why we're going to talk with Palmer Luckey coming up. He's our special guest today. He's the founder of Anduril Industries, and they got the Project Maven contract. Google walked away from it. Anduril Industries has it. They make the drones for the Pentagon. So anyway, really good conversation, and it's a great debate, and we got to turn to this one because this is also important. The Supreme Court beginning its new term today, plenty on the docket, including the battle over Dreamers, some of America's biggest companies, Starbucks, Apple, Google, saying that the immigrants brought to the United States as children are great for the economy. They want to see this go a certain way. Judge, your thoughts.
The oral argument on this is tomorrow, and it'll be very, very interesting to see how the two new justices, if they tip their hands by the questions that they ask. This is DACA. This is President Obama's decision by executive order after Congress refused to enact the legislation he wanted to allow the 700,000 young adults who came here as babies, who did not have the choice to come here, who are fully Americanized and who are a part of American culture to stay here. The Trump administration wants to begin the process of deporting them, and they have challenged this, and this challenge is now before the Supreme Court. Here's the question. When the law leads you to believe that you are safe and comfortable and can stay where you are, can that rug be pulled out from under you with no notice whatsoever? That's basically what the courts are going to decide. Stated differently, should these 700,000 people here, these are not criminals, these are not lawbreakers, these are people who came here as babies, who've gone to school, who work or are a significant part of the economy, should they summarily be deported? Needless to say, I hope the court says no, but there are arguments on both sides. The argument on the Trump administration side is Congress specifically said they are subject to deportation, and the president has to follow Congress's laws, not what the president wishes the laws, I'm speaking of President Obama, should be. So the court has both arguments, and we'll hear it tomorrow.
And the court is going to be hearing literally cases on every hot-button issue in this country, whether it's gay rights, abortion, and even, I hope that they take up this gun case. It'll be the first serious Second Amendment case that they've taken up in more than a decade. It relates to New York City.
We will probably find out this morning if they take up the gun case. This is the city of New York, which prohibits people who lawfully own guns to carry them and to carry ammunition from one part of the city to the next, or from New Jersey into New York. It's absurd.
Cy Vance has been on this program, and he's very adamant about that.
They actually, when the Supreme Court indicated it's interested in the case, changed the law.
They say they changed the law.
Well, they claim they stopped enforcing it for fear that the Supreme Court will invalidate the law and open up a floodgate of gun rights.
And a handful of Democratic senators wrote an amicus brief in relation to this case, essentially threatening the court, threatening the Supreme Court, saying that they will stack the court if they hear this case.
I'm sorry to say that everything McDee says is true. The Democrats, not all of them, a half dozen of them, all lawyers have basically said to the Supreme Court, go against us on guns, and we will add people to your number. This would not happen in the Trump administration. The president would never sign such legislation.
Typical, more shaming.
This is their goal in the long run.
A lot of bullying going on. Judge, good to see you.
Oh, pleasure, guys.
Thank you, Judge Andrew Napolitano. We will take a break. When we come back.